Have you noticed that as Nigeria marks another Democracy Day, one question refuses to go away? While speeches are being prepared, celebrations are taking place, and government officials reflect on the country's democratic journey, millions of Nigerians are still asking about one of the most controversial and emotional political issues of our time. Nnamdi Kanu remains behind bars, and the debate over whether President Bola Ahmed Tinubu could one day grant him a presidential pardon continues to grow louder. For many people, June 12th is not just about the past anymore. It has become a moment to think about the future and whether national reconciliation is possible. The conversation has become impossible to ignore. Across social media, in political circles, among supporters of Kanu, among critics of IPOB, and even among ordinary Nigerians with no direct connection to the issue, the question continues to surface. What happens next? Could the government eventually consider a political solution? Or will the legal process remain the only path forward? Whatever side of the debate people stand on, one thing is clear. This issue remains one of the most closely watched matters in Nigeria today. Before we go any further, if you enjoy balanced discussions on the biggest stories shaping Nigeria, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others. And when you've heard the full story, drop your thoughts in the comments because this is one topic that continues to divide opinion across the country. To understand why this conversation remains so important, we have to go back and look at the bigger picture. For years, Nnamdi Kanu has been one of the most recognizable and controversial political figures in Nigeria. As the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, widely known as IPOB, he became the face of a movement that advocates for the independence of Biafra from Nigeria. His supporters view him as a political activist who speaks for people who feel marginalized and unheard. His critics see him as a divisive figure whose actions and rhetoric have contributed to tension and instability. Depending on who you ask, Kanu is either a symbol of resistance or a symbol of a challenge to national unity. Regardless of where anyone stands, there is no denying that his case has had a major impact on Nigeria's political conversation for many years. Since his return to Nigeria in 2021 and the legal proceedings that followed, his case has remained at the center of debates about justice, security, constitutional rights, national unity, and the future of the Southeast region. The issue became even more significant after the court proceedings that ultimately resulted in his conviction and imprisonment. Since then, supporters have continued to push for his release through various legal and political avenues, while others argue that the court's decision should be respected. That brings us to the question many Nigerians are asking today. Can a presidential pardon ever happen? To answer that question, it is important to understand what a presidential pardon actually means. A presidential pardon is not simply a political announcement made during a speech. It is a constitutional process. The president has powers under the law to grant clemency in certain circumstances, but such decisions usually involve legal procedures, consultations, and recommendations through appropriate institutions. In other words, even though people often discuss pardons on social media as if they can happen overnight, the reality is usually much more complex. Still, that has not stopped growing calls from various groups urging the government to consider some form of political solution. Supporters of clemency often argue that national unity sometimes requires political courage. They point to examples from different countries where governments have pursued reconciliation efforts after long periods of conflict or political tension. According to this line of thinking, releasing Kanu could potentially help reduce tensions, improve dialogue, and create opportunities for broader engagement between the federal government and communities that feel alienated from the political system. Those who support this position often argue that lasting peace is achieved not only through legal victories, but also through trust-building measures. However, others strongly disagree. Critics of any potential pardon argue that the rule of law must remain paramount. They believe that allowing political considerations to override judicial outcomes could send the wrong message and undermine confidence in institutions. From their perspective, the courts have played their role, and any attempt to bypass that process could create new controversies rather than solving existing ones. This difference of opinion is exactly why the issue remains so sensitive. What makes it even more fascinating is that both sides often claim they are defending Nigeria's long-term interests. One side speaks about reconciliation, the other speaks about accountability. One side talks about healing divisions, the other talks about protecting institutions. And somewhere in the middle are millions of Nigerians simply hoping for peace, stability, and progress. As Democracy Day arrives, the symbolism of June 12th adds another layer to the discussion. June 12th occupies a special place in Nigeria's history. It represents sacrifice, democratic struggle, and the pursuit of political inclusion. For many Nigerians, it is a reminder that democracy is not just about elections. It is also about dialogue, participation, fairness, and national cohesion. That is why some observers believe discussions surrounding Kanu often become more prominent around Democracy Day. People naturally begin asking difficult questions about justice, representation, and national unity. Yet it is important to separate facts from speculation. As of the time of this report, there has been no official announcement that President Tinubu intends to grant a presidential pardon to Nnamdi Kanu. That point cannot be stressed enough. There are discussions, there are appeals, there are opinions, there are expectations. But expectations are not decisions, and speculation is not policy. Still, the continued attention surrounding the issue shows just how important it remains to many Nigerians. The story is no longer just about one individual. It has become a broader conversation about the future of the federation, the relationship between different regions, and the ability of democratic institutions to address long-standing grievances. That is one reason why international observers continue to follow developments closely. Nigeria is Africa's most populous country and one of the continent's most influential democracies. Whenever major political issues arise, they naturally attract attention beyond the country's borders. Investors watch, diplomats watch, human rights organizations watch, members of the Nigerian diaspora watch, and of course, ordinary citizens watch. Everyone is trying to understand what comes next. For the Tinubu administration, this issue also presents a complicated balancing act. Any decision, whether it involves maintaining the current approach or considering alternative options in the future, would likely generate strong reactions. Supporters would celebrate, critics would object. Political commentators would debate the implications for months. That reality helps explain why governments often approach such matters cautiously. The stakes are simply too high. And perhaps that is why the conversation continues year after year without losing public interest. Because at its heart, this is not merely a legal story. It is a political story, a constitutional story, a regional story, and for many people, an emotional story as well. As Nigerians reflect on Democracy Day, the country once again finds itself discussing difficult but important questions. How should democracies handle deeply divisive political issues? Can national reconciliation coexist with legal accountability? What role should political leadership play in resolving long-standing disputes? And what kind of future do Nigerians want to build together? These are questions that go far beyond the fate of any one individual. They touch on the very nature of the Nigerian project itself. And that is why the debate remains alive. Before we wrap up, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends and family so more people can join the conversation. And most importantly, head to the comment section and tell us your view. Do you believe a presidential pardon could help strengthen national unity in the future? Or do you think legal processes should remain the only path forward? Whatever your position, respectful dialogue remains one of the strongest foundations of any democracy. As Nigeria marks another June 12th, one thing is certain. the conversation surrounding Nnamdi Kanu is far from over, and many Nigerians will continue watching closely to see what the future holds. Until then, staying informed, staying engaged, and listening to different perspectives may be more important than ever.